I wanted to share, I think, a pertinent insight from the Tiferes, who speaks about this week's parsha, and I guess we'll start with a sort of a context. Parshas Vayigash Vayechi, on the one hand, seems like a sort of sequel with some sort of, we can say, a downward spiral. We leave Eretz Yisrael, we go off to Mitzrayim, and we all know what future faces them. But the significance is we have spent the majority of our existence as Klal Yisrael in Galus. And an understanding of how one survives in Galus is critical. We have, on the one hand, unfortunately lost so many. I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about assimilating out, disappearing so many communities, unfortunately. We hope HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings back whatever is nidach. Our tefillah is Mekabel Zeh Yisrael, but it's reality that so much. And the great miracle of Yisrael is we're here. No other nation ever lived within another nation and survived. There's no such thing as a third generation Ukrainian in America. And maybe I'm saying, yeah, my father's somewhere in Europe. There's no such thing. There's no legacy. There's no continuation. There are people, I just met someone yesterday. He told me his great-great-grandfather came to New Orleans, and he, the family stayed Jewish, observant, tradition, I don't know exactly why. Adayom, all over the South, and family members there. That's something that's unthinkable. And that is these parashas of Vayigash Vayechi, it prepares the ground for it. Tiferes points out something in the word Vayechi that's an anomaly. Because we speak English, we don't pick up on it. How long have you been living there is a normal English idiom, expression. And if it comes manat is not you said it's kamas manat galsham dalsham kamas manu yasham, but chaisham, it's like the word living is very specific. So it's like asking somebody, are you still living? It doesn't sound that way. The word should have been Vayehi Yaakov. That should have been the word. What's the word Vayechi? That's the Tiferes' point of departure. And he says, and I'll quote, he says, Yaakov brought a chiyus with him into Mitzrayim. And I'll explain what that means, and then what he elaborates on it. What's the difference? How do we describe the difference, the core difference between the animate and inanimate? Obviously, when you see a person, he's breathing, he's talking, he's walking, he's doing something. Sometimes we see, for instance, coral reefs are living, and yet they look like rocks. They were treated as rocks a long time. How would we give a definition sort of that gives us the difference? So I would say the following definition. Something that's inanimate exists because it had existed before. If I see a rock in front of a building and I ask somebody, why is this rock over here? The answer is because it hasn't been moved. It fell like a day ago, a year ago, a century ago, and no one has moved it. As long as no one will touch it, the rock is going to stay there. Yeah, it erodes in time, but I'd say the justification for the rock's existence, I can correctly define it as existing because it existed. Using a Gemara's phraseology, kanimtza kan haya. I assume this had been always the case. Living, no one is a living being because it lived yesterday. Unless there's a process that I can describe now. It's breathing, there's intake, there's output. The only reason why our coral reef is living is because there's a process going on. There's some chemical process, and if once that process is over, it becomes a skeleton. So something living requires a definition of why is this now alive. There must be a hischachus, there must be a chiddush, something new every second. The minute it reverts to being as was, it's now inanimate and it's dead. So the word chius is something that defines an ongoing process. Now, when we're talking about Yaakov Avinu coming to coming to Mitzrayim, and now it says by Yechid, what the Sfasemis is trying to point out is in Golus, there is no survival of an inanimate, static Yiddishkeit. And this is one of the big problems in the States. In Europe, because of the fact we were in ghettos, because of the fact that society is very rigid and closed and so on, as long as you are in the community, you almost perforce were Jewish, observant, and you float along. There was no other way. So unless somebody left the community, he stayed. The ghetto walls fell. In East Europe, they cracked. I wouldn't say they fell, they cracked. There was still a lot of emotional and judicial barriers. Western Europe, much less, and America still much less. And then a lot of it began to disintegrate. And the reason was because a static Judaism could not do it anymore. Unless it came with a chiyus, unless the reason why I'm davening today, or learning today, or putting on today is because I'm doing it today, because my society did it, it's not enough. It doesn't last. So Yaakov Avinu, as long as they were a sort of a structure on their own, they did not have independence really, but they had their own community, then there was no need to emphasize this chiyus. They came to Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was the center of the world, economically, culturally, every way. If their own Yiddishkeit, if their own commitment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, would not be with a chiyus, it would rapidly disintegrate. As it was, we took a terrible toll. Survival was only with chiyus. The Sfasemis adds that in order for chiyus to happen, he points to a tree. It needs to be rooted in something. In other words, if I'm the one that's observing things, observant and so on, that tends to dry out because there's no input. If a person is drawing chidush and chiyus of something, it says, if you double in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you are alive. A person starting the journey of life, which you are on the cusp of it, whether you learn another year, another 2 years, but you're moving on towards a phase of life where you're moving out into society a lot more than you've been until now. Finding those areas that keep re-energizing you in Yiddishkeit. For some people it's tefillah, some people it's Torah, some people it's chesed. But the point is, if it's lifeless and kind of, okay, I'm in a routine, but it's not something that speaks, that keeps on giving me my reason to live, then it slowly begins to dry. Even if we don't lose it completely, but it becomes a shell. It's very unpleasant to go through life doing things which it's kind of habit, routine, and that's the way it's always been done, but there's no real chiyus to it. So a crucial key for being able to have a vibrant and strong life, Yiddish life, is finding that place. For many people, learning does it. This medrash is active. I walked in the shir, it looked robust, and being able to, for the rest of your life, to have this little time set aside where the learning is robust. You're part of a community where Yiddish is not described as observing, but as performing, as doing, with chiyus. You're down in a place, or you co-locating to down a place where people are on fire with the down. You're involved in activities, whether it's building local meisters, whether it's helping out to stall, whatever you're doing. But you're doing it because it's a flame that's igniting you. That's the key to survival. And I'm not calling it survival. Being on a ventilator, we don't consider real survival. We want to have peace. So possibly the most important thing you can take away from your time in Israel is finding one accord of peace. And I'm sure you've experienced, certainly in a place like here, things that give you that inner connection. And whatever gives that inner connection, that's your pipeline for an adjacence and energizing yourself and bringing out that chiyus. B'ez Hashem, you should be zocher to be yonik as long as you can from the comments of Torah like here, and you should be zocher to find that, make that a lifelong connection. Don't keep on energizing.
Okay, so I think we're ready. That's where Torah got to experience Rabbi Lopiansky's wisdom. So we're now going to open the floor to questions. And again, guys, I think questions on the two books would be very good. Like character growth, how to be successful in yeshiva, how to be successful in the workforce. I think that should be the focus. Okay, who wants to start?
Yeah,
Can you introduce yourself? I'd like to know what's your name?
Moises Tashe,
From where?
out of Florida.
Actually, I have a daughter who just moved there a few months ago, so yeah.
Wow. So
It's a good question. I don't know when to encourage her to stay on that.
the Rav spoke in his book about doing chesed and making sure that, like, keep it personal and not talk to others about it and keep it personal. How much chesed should we be doing, both like in yeshiva and eventually when we go off to either college or into the workforce? Like, what's a good balance between Talmud Torah in our free time for chesed?
So, in almost all questions in life, we're going to have to learn how to be honest with ourselves. We have a tendency to favor things that are easier for us in our comfort zone. And so for a person who's naturally bookish, focused, not social, Talmud Torah comes easy to him, chesed comes harder to him, and vice versa. People that are friendly, social, they're very intro. It's important to learn, and a mentor in yeshiva is good for that. Someone that tells you, you're an amazingly nice person, but you need to learn how to focus more, and vice versa. I'll share with you a goy in Rus. It says that Naomi told her daughter-in-laws, stay involved, you have nothing to look for next Yisrael, nothing's going to you. Arpa took her at her word, and she said goodbye, very lovingly, and Rus followed her. It says on Naomi, Batar kimis ametzes hilaleches. She saw that she's struggling to go with her, and she took her. The normal pshat we learn is, Rachmanis, this poor girl really wants, and so on and so forth, so, you know what, I'll let her. The Gross says an amazing insight into human nature. He says ruchnius does not come easy to a person. So if some ruchniistic event is proposed, and a person says, well, I'm in, he needs to question. So I'm doing this, there's a great mitzvah to Amel. Wow, I'm there. So I need to question, is it really the mitzvah that's driving me or something else? But if I have to struggle with it, then I know that it's come to a good place. Things that a person is too ready and too easy to go with, along with, he needs to think a second or third time, is it because it's the easy path for me, or is it because it's really the right thing? And having a mentor that you trust and feel understands you and has the direction you want to go with is invaluable, certainly for setting a certain precedent.
Yeah, hi, Yedidia Helfenbaum from Toronto, Canada. If it's okay, I wanted to ask you a question on last week's Parsha. So there's a midrash that talks about when Yosef is introducing his brothers to Paro, he chose 5 brothers, and the midrash explains that he chose 5 brothers that were the weakest so they wouldn't get drafted. I noticed, interestingly enough, he chose 2 of those brothers were Shimon and Levi. I was wondering how that works with them destroying the city, and another midrash saying that he put Shimon in jail so that Shimon and Levi wouldn't be together to destroy all of Mitzrayim.
Right. So I don't remember, I saw someone ask the question, and I think, if I remember correctly, he says he wanted to, since Paro knew that Shimon is strong, he wanted Paro to think that he's not fooling him. So he shows him Shimon, but 4 other guys who didn't look that strong. I guess Levi was not at all strong. I'm Levi, so I'm not kidding. But I think I saw that shot. I remember someone pointing that. It's a good point, and I know someone pointed out, and I believe he said it was kind of the fig leaf, so to speak, so that he would say, oh, these must be the next after Shimon. Nothing to write home about.
Yehuda?
Yehuda Ginsburg, Cleveland, Ohio. The Rav in the Sefer, you talk about the idea of like addictive behavior and technology. And you talk about the idea of actually it could prevent somebody from like fully immersing themselves into their Makam Torah.
Right.
I was wondering if you could elaborate on it a bit and what's the exact connection?
Yes. So I would take 3 steps back and say, even if it wasn't even if that chapter wasn't written about Torah or any education, it is incredibly sad, tragic that we become mentally and emotionally passive. When people talk about the problems of ripping down ChatGPT and so on, the real tragedy is that we're not going to learn how to express ourselves, how to think, how to be creative. It's just like, things are very simple. If you're addicted to a car, you will become flabby. And I'm always amazed at people that spend $1,000 to go to a gym. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. It divides with the base measures how many times you miss. And then they'll go with the car. If there's somebody else, he takes his car to the shul and parks further away than his house. His house is 1.2 blocks from the shul. The parking space is 1.5 blocks from the shul. But he's addicted. It's so, okay, hands and feet are hands and feet. But thinking actively is the most core, it's the most hushed human faculty. And our achas come and learning Gemara. The satisfaction that people get is when they think actively. It's a painful process in the beginning, but then afterwards, it's the same way like working out. And then when you become an athlete, the thrill of being able to do things is an incredible thrill. And all of technology is passive. I was once on a flight back to America, and an LL student was sitting on that jump seat across from us. So I schmoozing with him. And I asked of these long flights to America, like these long day flights, where people are trapped for 15 hours and never end the afternoon. It's like, I think Victor Miller once said, Gehenna is afternoon Seder eternally. Like you're in Seder, so you eat the Gehenna. It's the same place, but depending on the person. So I asked her is it difficult? She said it used to be Gehenna. It's like people couldn't stop nudging her. I want this, I want this, I want that, I want that. Oh no. She said, thank God, once we have devices, I have to wake up people, sir, you haven't drank anything for 10 hours, you're going to die of dehydration. You must drink something. But people have that type, and in thinking wise, it's something which deprives people. So just like a car is very convenient, very convenient, but then the person can't walk 2 blocks because of it. You cripple yourself. I really think that to me, everything, all the other stuff, there's a lot of problems, but the addiction becomes something that robs you of your most valuable faculty. Baruch Hashem on Shabbos, we can't use it. We have to sit with a sefer and learn and engage and talk. It's incredibly rewarding. So that's where I was coming from.
Got it.
Hi, I'm Gabi. I'm also from Holland, Florida. Can you explain why is like our seichel our most valuable faculty?
Well, let's go slowly. Any other part of our body, we share with every other animal. I read occasionally, like the flow of more modern, sophisticated left wing, however you want to call it, like New York Times, that, and there's an ongoing ruach. You get this type of article every so often that humanity is the greatest calamity that happened to Earth. So, had Earth been left to dogs, cats, orangutans, that would be bliss. So I say yes, l'shitasa. If the seichel of a person is not terribly important, then we're quite nebbish animals. We can't really survive without our seichel. But I want to talk about seichel itself. Seichel itself consists of different parts. There is the seichel that deals with physical reality. How to hunt. How do I go hunting for the deer I need to eat? That is not in any way essentially different than an animal. Maybe we're better at it, we're quicker at it, but a computer is even quicker than we are. So that's not where it's at. But we're able to think of ideas that have no physical correspondent. Dignity. Translate dignity into a physical reality. We can't. Translate sanctity. Translate goodness. None of those things translate. They come from a world that is higher than the physical world. It transcends it. There's just no way. Good, the word good in an essential way, like tov and ra in an essential way. No way we can translate it. Is it physically better to live with kedusha? No. But we understand Torah when we say ra. That's where we are different. That's where there's half of us that belongs to a reality beyond our world. And that's why it's so precious to us. The only part of ourself that can feel that way is our seichel and our das.
Josh.
Many.
Where are you from, Josh?
I'm Joshua Iskowitz. I'm Joshua Iskowitz. I'm from LA.
Yeah.
Want to ask, particularly in Oraita, a lot of students are going to secular college. We also have a lot of alumni here who are currently in secular college. So I want to ask, how do you balance like the need for like a living together with Torah study? How do you implement Torah study into your schedule? Yeah.
So I would like to add something. I think if you're going to a secular college, Torah study is not the most important factor. The most important factor is, like we said, to be rooted in a place that's you and yours. The difference between who you are and where you function is a world of difference. A soldier's on a battlefield. He is in a very difficult place, but home is not the battlefield. A person who's a business person can be traveling most of the year, but home is his home. A homeless person doesn't have a home. Finding a place. By us in Yeshiva, we have different degrees, because the Yeshiva is located in the community, we're kind of different that way. We're physically in the heart of the community, we're the base manager of the community, and Therefore, we have people who are full-time yeshiva during college evenings. We have people who they're one seder and are affiliated with yeshiva. We have people who are doing full-time college, not affiliated with the yeshiva officially, but we welcome them. So that they'll come at learn, they'll come maybe early morning, they'll eat with yeshiva, Shabbosim, being rooted in a place in a society, because the Rambam says there is nothing that influences a person's sense of identity more than the environment that he feels is home. So finding a place, wherever it is, that's close, that this is me and this is who I am. I'm functioning, I'm working in a different environment. Not different than we go to work and a person could be involved in a job that requires many hours. I have a home, I have a shul, I have a community. Having that is incredibly important. My parents, my father, came from Lithuania. He was a survivor, Holocaust survivor, was surviving children. He was an older person when he came to America. He and his brothers especially were very involved in the following institution in Lithuania. Most people went to work at the age of 13. Poverty was hard, was very poor. Yeshivas couldn't afford to stay open. People couldn't afford to live in yeshivas. The reality was that at bar mitzvah age, most kids went to work. And it was devastating in terms of what it did. As long as the community structure was very rigid and tight, like we said, it kept it. But when things began softly, they were very instrumental in founding a movement called Tiferes Gedaliah, which was a home, so to speak, for people not in yeshiva. At night there'd be shir, there'd be a magid shir that was involved with them. Shabbos there'd be sudas, there'd be get-togethers, there'd be going places. It created an environment that was home. And I think that it's crucial to finding wherever you're going to find an environment that's like that.
So far, we've had 5 questions from Shanabek guys. Shanab guys, don't be bashful. You can ask questions too. Yeah, Eitan.
Hi, Eitan Sanger from Riverdale, New York. So I think one of the most difficult things when it comes to character development and, improving one's character is the reality that those around you often have a much better perspective on, what you need to improve, whether it's, your own personal character, whether it comes with your character in terms of Torah and mitzvot or in any other way. How does one balance both the person that say you needs correcting of their character and in terms of accepting, advice from others and, improving with other people, but also in terms of, say you're someone and you see a friend and you see they need some advice and you see they need something to improve, but making sure to do it in a way that is actually conducive to them improving and not just making them defensive or making them, go farther away from where the goal you see for them.
So you're asking sort of in the midst of tochacha, how do you do it? So I think you're very correct. Most of the time, in that type of situation, if you go to somebody and say, you're doing something wrong, terribly wrong, or whatever it is, people become offensive. Some exceptions are somebody who's a very close friend of yours, where 9 out of 10 interactions are very positive. And you say, this is something that I'm sure you don't notice it, but it gets on people's nerves. There, the person takes it in context of deep friendship. So if the balance between genuine appreciation and friendship to things that you're setting off is 1. 2, phrasing something and saying, I'm sure you don't even notice it, but is also helpful. Sometimes a mentor or Rabbi obviously is make me better because the person has to defense it. I also find in working with Talmidim, if a person's working with an issue where I can genuinely say, I myself had this problem, and it took me a while till I got over it, it's very helpful. I'm supposed to be genuine. But then it means I'm like you. I know I used to be all over the place and say that sit still. I really worked hard at it because I knew it made the difference, and I'm so happy I did. I'm telling you, it'll make a difference. So then you're not better than him because you were the same thing, but you just able to find the moment. So those are ways around it. But the fact that you're sensitive to understand it says something. You might make a mashkiach something. Maybe you should be insensitive as a mashkiach, I'm not sure.
All right, Raymond, breaking the barrier for Shanov.
Raymond Ashkenazi from Brooklyn. how are we able to find the Torah or the part of Judaism that we connect to, that lights us on fire and that like continually uplifts us, and like instead of just coasting, like how are we able to really take this year to find what that part of Judaism is?
So it'll be a journey, because on the one hand, you also need to learn that there are things that are never going to be easy for us, but you have to do. Whether you like davening or not, whether that's the key to your personality, you have to daven. Whether you like learning or not, whether it's key personality, some learning you have to do. Whether it's your personality to chesed and that'll turn you on or not, there's a certain amount that's required no matter what. If I give a mashal, Paula gives this mashal about yeshiva, when you go to Yomi, there's boot camp. Even if you're the world's genius in computers, you're going to have to learn to clean the gun, you're going to have to learn to march information, you have to learn to do what you have to do, no matter what. And it's rough for somebody who's this great computer genius, and he's a shlemazel and everything else. Boot camp is a rough experience. But at some point, we begin to differentiate. Say, okay, you guys, technology. You guys, kavi. You guys this, you guys that. Being able to, first of all, accept that this is going to, it's a year where you're getting basic skills in every area of Yiddishkeit. And you'll see as you go along, there'll be certain things that you'll find opening up in you. You'll be on the alert for it and get a feel for it. Bez Hashem, you'll hone in on it.
Yishama?
Yeshama Orlo,
Right.
New York.
Wow, bitches in New York. Where, which part of New York? What?
What things?
What place? Yeah.
So I think that it's a beautiful thing to show find
Sorry?
It's a beautiful thing to show find our fire, but a lot of people can then become consumed by the one thing that they get love with. So how do we balance those two things of finding what keeps our fire, but also staying headstream?
So it's like I said before, a person has to make a cheshbon nefesh. What's the amount of davening that's right for me? What's the amount of learning? The amount of chesed? The amount of dikduk mitzvahs? You can't avoid thinking about things and weighing things, but there'll be a proportion where these are the things I do because I need to a minimum, and this is where my heart neshama have to be. So it's something that you yourself, with the help of a mentor of some sort, many times. But you're right, it'll be a cheshbon, but the structure of the pyramid will be that. I want to add something. It's the right way to understand different drachim in Yiddishkeit. A derech that is missing one mitzvah totally is not a derech, it's off the derech. Okay? So 612 mitzvahs it is not Yiddishkeit, period. But amongst the people that accept Taryag mitzvahs, I mean, the Shulchan Aruch as is, let's call it. So you can build it in many different ways. You can build, your mantra is, it says Hamida Malachas. For some people, I'm an Eved Hashem. For some people, Dveik HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For some people, Torah. For some people, Eretz Yisrael. For some people, Olam Chesed Yibara. The different drachim that are valid all accept the entire package. So just like Lahavla of Havdalas, when you get sometimes a puzzle that you have to put together pieces, there may be many solutions, but the klal is you must make use of every piece, and you can't be missing pieces. As long as your version satisfies that, then it's a valid version, and it speaks to different people. So the different shvatim, this week, the bracha of each shevet is different. And yet it says Yaakov Avinu was chazak v'kolos kula. So we need some part of everything and an organization of emphasis based on our personality. What's it?
Micha Overloo from Vermont.
From Vermont. Wow.
So actually the question is sort of related to being from there, in that I'm my family and I'm surrounded by a lot of people who are just
Which town in Vermont?
Burlington.
Burlington, yeah.
Just a very different in life than me. And as that gap widens to a certain extent, I'm wondering if you have any practical advice on like how to keep myself to a very high standard of derech eretz and kindness and what that just when things do differ and get the gap gets wider that maintain that.
It's obviously a struggle, but let me tell you, it's ironic. When you radiate, when somebody is comfortable with who he is, then people around it respect it. If you can joke or brush off people's comments, then people say, you know, he really must be comfortable with himself. If you react violently, defensively, and so on, the message is, no, he's not really comfortable with it. He's trapped, and he's defending himself. I don't know people are always conscious of it. So if somebody comments on the way you look or dress, and also many people are based in the month. That's not the mahal. And you say, I'm celebrating diversity, or you should see what everyone else looks like, or if you can be offhand about it and understand, there's no way they have any background to get it. So, but the more you can be comfortable and confident, and not allow yourself to emotionally get caught up with it, it'll help. Because when people say, you know what, I don't know, but he seems to be confident. And he seems to be, it's coming from a place of strength, not a place of weakness. I know it's difficult, and the more you have, if you're rooted in a place where you feel comfortable, like you have Shiva, a place wherever it is that life will take you, like you have a mako, then you can deal with them in ways that you feel comfortable. You know who you are, you know where you belong, and they don't get it. What can I do?
Now things are warming up here. Okay, Max.
I'm Max Kimmel from Vancouver, Canada.
From where?
Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah.
I was wondering what a person should do to find where they can have the biggest impact, or to find their biggest impact in the world in Am-Yisrael, and how to find their specific avoda.
So I would start with defining this. I'll tell you, in a certain sense, yeshivas had a certain, I don't know what to call it, some ethos, a certain sense to inculcate people the fact that they have to work on themselves first and then on the world. In other words, you find many people, I read something a while back about, it was very mainstream, about toxic work environments. And he said, the place that has probably the most toxic work environment is Amnesty International. I was blown away. Now, we all have our opinion about Amnesty, but realistically speaking, these are people that try hard to be kind or whatever. But the reason is, they became turned on in college, where it's about saving the world. They never looked at a mirror and said, who am I, what am I? I am perivolate. Every person is born with a tough Yitzhak, and unless I work on myself, it'll be, working in the world will be flawed at best, and further at worst. So there's a certain first person works on himself. To the degree that's possible, the time we spend in yeshiva and so on, and then once we get a sense of where our strengths are, we'll know where to express it, how to express it.
Okay, Judah.
Judah Dardick, California, New Jersey here.
California and New Jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, right? That's a big hyphen between California and New Jersey.
He was the Rav of the community in Oakland.
Really? Wow. Okay.
I'm curious if the Rosh Yeshiva could share with us a little bit about watching Talmidim who've been in yeshiva and then moved on into next steps of life. What are the most common, let's say, stumbling blocks or pitfalls that people who are doing well find themselves not doing so well now?
So, I would say a few things. We actually have get-togethers with our alumni. We just had one for the alumni in Baltimore. It's about an hour away. We have a lot of alumni there. Then we had one with the alumni locally in Silver Spring. Quite a few, Baruch Hashem. We used to do one in New York. It's a little difficult, and I think the best muscle for it is, first of all, it's like a person trains on a bike with training wheels. I don't know if they still do that, but when I was growing up, I was like, they're training wheels. You jump out of a plane, not only with a parachute, but with someone else to pull the parachute for you. You don't pull it. You start with a crutch. That's normal. And then the first time you have to do it yourself, you practice a speech in front of friends. And then you have to practice it in front of an audience, that's strangers. There is that bump of, real life, so to speak, being away and so on. And it's something that it wobbles everyone. That happens all the time. Two, an important eitzah is you need to preserve time. Once a month, I would say, is might work. On a Motzei Shabbos, on a Sunday night, whatever it is, take 15, 20 minutes. Cheshbon nefesh, in a sense, where am I going? What's happening to me? What trends am I worried about? You will become part of another place. You become part of society, like we said before, a person part of society. So when you're in a workplace, and especially if it's a very vibrant, high-class place, you tend to become engaged, involved. You need to find the time to think about yourself, and like I said, for a place. When you're looking for a community to settle, you want to ask yourself, where are people who share my sense of wanting to grow in Yiddishkeit, and where is there a rabbinic figure that what he says, his presence, and things like that make the difference. I think it's one of the things that's most crucial in determining will you just kind of slowly disintegrate. You'll be observant, but not much more than that. Or a place where you have a certain chiyus, where your kids see a father that's Yiddishkeit is real and alive. Those are things that you want to look for. So there will be a wobbling, that's natural. You need to find time to be able to think outside. There's a beautiful mashal from the Breslova. And I don't know if everybody, people know it, don't know it. There was once a kingdom where the king had a dream, or the wise men had a dream, that the king would, that everybody in the kingdom would become crazy because the grain was poisoned. I actually saw some historical note that the rye used to have a fungus that created a hallucinating agent, and occasionally be a crap where people sort of go. So the wise men came together, and they said, we'll make a special storage house of wheat for the king, and the king will be normal. Then they thought about it, and they said, a sane king cannot rule over an insane kingdom. That's why we elect insane presidents. That's but Al Kapanim, so he said, so what are we going to do? The king will have to eat the same grain like everybody else. But he's going to have a ring that will say on the ring, remember, you are crazy. What I mean is, you're not going to be a yeshiva bacher in a workplace. What you need to understand, to keep referring back to the fact that this is the most beautiful life you can imagine. It's real, it's ruchnis, it's Sharhu, it's Torah, it's Kedusha, it's something like that. Just hold on to it. I know one of the things that has become very popular over the last years, in the very Haredi community, in the Yeshiva community, that's amazing, is Yarei Kala. People come back to the Mir Yeshiva for a week to learn, to recharge. Every person I met that's done it, 100 people do it, they can get 300-400 people out of shaft. They say, and these are people that live in very, very few communities, but it's to sit in this marriage again with the noise of everybody learning, to see Rabbi Ahron say a share, to hear him say shmuz, it just recharges. Yes, I'm in a different world, but this is the real world, and that world is a world I have to contend with. Those are type of things I'm saying, keeping that root like we spoke before, and connecting and recharging and being aware that this was happening. I think those are critical elements.
All right, who's in the back end? Yeah. Yaakov. Oh, Yaakov, you're actually a Talmud from Lopiansky.
Yeah, I was a boarder in 10th grade at Wedge W.
Yaakov?
Schumann.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering
where are you from?
I'm from Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Wondering what the advantages are of staying in Israel or going to like Yeshiva of Greater program in America compared to like staying in Israel for Shana Bet.
So, Eretz Yisrael has in itself a certain avira of purity, of Tiferes Gedaliah. There's something in Eretz Yisrael that is unique. If you find a place that fits your needs, it's certainly Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. There's something about Tiferes Gedaliah. People, the communities, people that are very idealistic, dedicated. Those are the things you get a feel for people that are really, idealistic and so on. If going back to the States is what you have to do, you find a place in the place. But in terms of learning at Israel, it's very hard to compare things.
Okay. No Meltzer?
Maybe prejudiced. I was zoned to learn Yeshiva 25 years. I came right out of high school. They didn't have Shanal programs or bed programs. There were a handful of yeshivas in 1970. I was Zocha, and the people that I saw, the learning I saw, the Romas I saw, I can't imagine I've seen it. Maybe I would, but that's my best experience that I can share.
I'm Noah Meltzer from Atlanta, Georgia. How do you recommend students to continue and grow in their Gemara study when they're not in a yeshiva environment and they don't have access to a yeshiva like Beit Midrash?
So today they have, Baruch Hashem, with all the talk against technology, today there's an incredible amount of learning, and there's beginning to have interactive learning. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Kiffel here he helps us. He learned he was Talmud in high school at Yeshiva of Greater. He helps me when I come around to Yeshivas here, and he started just recently an incredible program that's going to take off. He helps find teachers and tutors for yeshivas in America, especially those that are out of town and struggling to find staff. It's very difficult. He had this idea to get a great here who would connect either one-on-ones or classroom teaching, and it's taking off and it's amazing. And being able to have that type of relationship where you can do, and Zoom has opened up a world to pay somebody at Israel to learn with you every day, whatever it is, one-on-one, or to find a share that's interactive. It's amazing. You have passage from OU has an incredible array of Daf Yomi, things like that, Mishnah Yomi, Daf Yomi, and so on. Always better to have some active share. But yes, that's why Control made the internet, so that a person can be sitting in who knows where and pick up and click a button, and he's sitting with somebody sitting here learning. It's incredible, and I would tell you to make it the first order of business.
Okay. Forgets.
It's Igor Frigo from Los Angeles. If a boy finds himself in yeshiva, and either maybe he in general doesn't want to be here, or he came for reasons other than learning Gemara, is there a way that he can be jump-started or jumpstart himself to enjoy learning?
So I think for every single person here, no matter where you are or who you are, you don't need to answer yourself the question about your Yiddishkeit. You can't walk away from it. Even if you think you can, it's there. If it's strong enough that you're here, even if you're forced, quote unquote, to come, it's inside. And unless you give it the try needed to bring it out as best it could be, you'll never feel comfortable. You need to make that attempt. And if you do it, you'll see that you will tap into things that it's an age also. There's a certain age where a person matures and begins to see things differently and understand things. Mm-hmm. If you give yourself the chance, you'll have the best of both worlds. To be proud of the Yiddishkeit and to be thrilled with it is the best of both worlds, because people who leave down deep feel hollow, down deep feel there's something missing. I was once talking to someone who had learned by us, very bright, and drifted away. And we wasn't living in Salisbury anymore. And we were very close personally. Kate went to visit him. We spent like a night sitting on a bench talking. And he told me, I'm working in this very, very high-tech firm, biotech firm, with hundreds of people, brilliant, and none of them believe. Why would I think that it's right? So I asked him, tell me, do you feel that if you ask the question to the around you, what are you living for? What's life? Does anyone have an answer to it? He said, no, and that's why my kids I'm keeping from. That was a conversation of 25 years ago. Understanding you have something that means something. Right now, you may be coming from a place where everything you feel was forced, I couldn't this, and that. But when you take a step away, imagine a life where it makes no difference if you live or die. Where I had to visit somebody who was in a hospital. Somebody had tried to commit suicide long later. And I walked in, and the social worker or somebody was there. I happened to walk by, was talking to the person. It wasn't a session, but it was something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And she turns to the patient. It was like right after some elections. Imagine if you would have took your own life, you wouldn't have known who won the elections. So some people might have said that would have been an advantage of going down. But upon it, but I was just starting to think, I said, my gosh, is that what life is about? To fulfill your curiosity, who won the game? But the person couldn't sum up anything. We have so much more than that. We have so much more. We have the idea, I would sit back and think, every person has a taiva. I would love to be able to satisfy the taiva as much as I can. Now, there's another picture. I'm married, and my wife knows that 24 hours a day I'm faithful, and I know 24 hours a day she's faithful. And I know 24 hours a day I'm concerned about her, 24 hours with me. It means I have to push away into Horus. Which is a life and which is not a life? Think about these things. And what a life that has no right and wrong, no good and bad. Yes, it's good to be good as many as you can. It's an empty state, it means nothing. I can, the idea that a person has these higher values, it takes effort. You might have to rethink of it as a mature adult, but that's what you're here for, to rethink. Give yourself the chance to get it as a mature adult, and I can assure you that you will have a very deep sense of satisfaction in life.
Jonah Gordon from Atlanta, Georgia. My question was, if one is in like university and they have, let's say, 2 hours a day for learning, how much of that time should be devoted to learning with someone like knowledgeable, and how much should it be devoted to like encouraging and helping people who are like on their way up?
This is a fair question. For some people, depending on where you are and so on, I would say since the beginning is certainly focusing more on getting from someone. But giving is it has two minds. First of all, you're giving to someone who needs. And also, it brings out a lot in you. The sense that you have no eyes. So I would say, as time goes on, you start more with being a mushbah, and slowly work your way to being mashpia. So always living with somebody some amount of time that you're giving, I think is positive. But you start with being more getting and slowly begin to give. Again, without knowing a person's heart to tell, but a general rule, I think that would be correct.
No. No.
I want to
introduce yourself first.
I'm Noam Brandress. I wanted to know, so there's a lot of talk in yeshiva, like this yeshiva especially is like kind of a crossroads, and people always talk about like Shalavet or staying longer or going off and doing different things. I want to know what are good reasons to keep on learning in yeshiva, and what are like not good reasons to keep on learning in yeshiva?
So I'm not sure what not good reasons would be. it's hard for me to think of a shalom lishma that would justify leaving. And maybe if you pickpocket people in yeshiva and you find that to be a good parnasa, maybe that would be a good reason not to return. But other than that, I want to explain. It's not only like we said before. When you build a building, how tall you can build and how well it stands up depends on the foundation. We've had a foundation till now in the sense of basics, but as an adult, as an intelligent, mature adult, to understand these things, and I see a difference. I see Shana Bet really as being, and I have no axe to grind. I mean, I guess in a certain sense, if I have the gears, it'd be to get everybody earlier, maybe, but it's wrong. Shana Bet, I see, is a really time of growth for people, and what it means is two things. First of all, emotionally and in Havana, you gain an awful lot. The skill level, as you move up in the skill level, it opens up many more avenues of enjoyable and productive learning like that. Once a person is able to learn himself, and he has felt the thrill of solid learning, then he's capable of hooking into so many more things. And he's capable to become an active learner as opposed to a passive listener. And it makes all the difference going forward. I really suggest that that's a very, very, it isn't very important. There's no two ways about it. And understand also, it's like, you always have to take into account that they always, when you buy like a shirt or something like that, they always say, it's a little bit bigger than fits, but it's going to shrink in the long term. Whatever you got in your Shana Aleph, when you walk out, it's going to shrink. And in Shana Bet, it's going to give us, hey, that's the, you want to have enough that you gain, that even when it takes the setback, like we mentioned before, when you're still a very solid ground. I couldn't encourage it more.
Okay, Elliot.
Now, after Shana Bet, if you want to consider coming, well, that's where we're going. Yeah.
Elliot Rogal, my question was, what are some sort of practical advice for how to figure out what derech is the right one for you, like in terms of, like you said, like whether like tefillah is really big for you, like how do you figure that out? Is it just like trying out, or what's?
It's a combination of two things, I would say. You want to find a framework, that you feel is emes, the people there are emes. You want to feel that they are people who are solid, balanced, and you want to feel that it speaks to something natural to you. It's not because somebody is promising something. It's because it clicks with you. And again, having a mentor person who understands you and understands what you're looking at, says it's a good fit or it's not quite the fit, is very helpful. But you want to make sure if it's whatever derech it is, you need to feel it's sincerity to what's right. It's a place that's grounded. It's not fly by night. It's kind of a communities that are grounded, and it's something that resonates with who you are. So, a person with a lot of regish, obviously something that will resonate. Somebody once came to visit the yeshiva of us. He had a son learning by us. The father was something that never learned the yeshivas. He was an extremely musically gifted person. He was a chazan, different things. Never learned in yeshiva. Very warm, good Jew. But and his son was learning. When he came to visit, he was there a day or two. And he says to me, he spoke in Vit. He had been there for a while. He says, I don't really feel habriskin elu. Like this, does the learning, how does the learning connect you emotionally? He didn't understand, and his personality was very musical. He had learned yeshivas, but he was really puzzled. He wasn't asking what kind of thing, he was really puzzled. The son was actually both. The son was actually, he was a big Balmatic, but he really got learning also. Fortunately, he's best of much possible. It's a process, and having somebody who's a Rabbi down the line, help guide you what would be appropriate meta community to belong to, I think is crucial.
Okay, we have time for one or two more questions. So let's go people have an interview. Any time.
Nita Esha in Phoenix, New Jersey. I heard Rosh Yeshiva is going to shir in Shabbat about a person who's born with characteristics who can be a murderer or a doctor or a shochet or a moel, and that it's about how a person uses the same kochot for different useful and then holy purposes. So the question I think about is, when a person has people for different ways of using those, whether it's in the practical parts or in the kedusha parts, how does a person navigate where to invest the most of their kochot with different parts of the life?
So let's give an example. A person enjoys teaching. He's a natural teacher. That's his personality. He could be teaching history in university. He could be teaching something in a yeshiva. He could be going out teaching in places. Certainly, a person should choose something in Kedusha because he's accomplishing something. Sometimes it's not so clear. He's extremely good at one, he's okay at the other. So, generally speaking, given the choice, Malam and Kodesh, you want to be able. I have a friend of mine. He's older than me, like quite a few years, something like 8, 9 years older than me. Somebody I admire very much. He learned to Chaim Berlin. He was a Talmud of Whitman. And he's brilliant. And he was teaching math in university. That was the time he was teaching math. He was learning inside. And that was Rav Ahron wanted him to be mashkia his kochos, and he told him, Shleima, Rav Ahron had a very expensive voice, Hashem did not give you that mind to teach calculus to Irishmen. That was the way he described it. Go and do this. He followed his advice. He opened up a Beis Yaakov. That's one of the biggest Beis Yaakovs in New York. Very, very matzliach, and so on. But he told me this once, and Rav Ahron told me. Rav Ahron sensed he had this ability, and he should use it for Kedusha. It means sacrificing more. I have news for you. The more Klei Kodesh it is, the less parnasa brings in. I think statistically we can assure that. And maybe Yeshiva has different salary structure, but in general, but that sacrifice means that you are bringing in the Ruach and Kedusha into the world. So if it's coming from the right place, then Ashrei.
Okay, so the truth is, I'd love to have more questions, but I think out of fairness to Rabbi Lopiansky, he's given us a lot of time, so I think we'll stop right.
And listen, I'm really impressed with the earnestness that people are dealing with these issues. And Kadosh Baruch Hu should give the enlightenment and the strength and the guidance that everyone find his rightful place and his connection with us.
So I just want to thank you again. It was really wonderful to have him, and we really hope that